Yeah, every time I see that Marlin, man, I just can't help but to laugh, especially being here in South Florida. But welcome in. Congratulations. You've made it to Thursday. It is our favorite day of the week. It's because we get to put it all together. We've got so much going on tonight, not only NBA, NHL, but we got, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. What comes after? 5, that's right. 5 college football games tonight, not to mention a 6th sort of college football game tonight when the Miami Marlins take on the Houston Texans Thursday night football. So much to be excited about. But more importantly, we get to make some money tonight because our good friend Ralph Michaels from wagertalk.com, he joins us, kind of break down not only a few of the games tonight, but certainly some of the action that's going to take place Saturday and Sunday. And, of course, top of next hour, our good friend, the fantasy expert himself from sportingnews.com, Matt Latufsky. He'll join us, kind of help you with those lineups there, fellas and ladies. And, you know, you're what, week 8 now, heading into the NFL season, so you're just about halfway there. Some of you maybe in the thick of it in your fantasy leagues. Other of you may need to dismantle and start from scratch. But either way, Matt Latufsky, sportingnews.com, he'll join us at 5 o'clock. And welcome in. Happy Thursday to you. It's the Joe Raineri Show, brought to you by wagertalk.com. We want to thank them so very much for being a part of the show here. And I can tell you right now, knowledge is power. We tell you all the time. And you get no more free great knowledge than you do at wagertalk.com, because you go there and it's all right at your fingertips. Not to mention you've got a dozen or so of the country's best handicappers, the smartest, the most successful Las Vegas and professional handicappers, all at your fingertips waiting for you at wagertalk.com. Not to mention just piles and piles of data and information that is easy to digest and easy for you to comprehend. And this way you make smart decisions when you're placing some action on these games and not just, you know, throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, for lack of a better term. So, which is why when Ralph joins us here on the show, and he's going to join us up here in just a couple of minutes. Dolphin fans here in South Florida are somewhat excited. They don't have to wait till Sunday to be completely miserable. They can be miserable here on a Thursday night as they get ready to hit the road and take on the Houston Texans. And we'll talk about this game with Ralph, get his thoughts. But I will say this: when else have you had an opportunity to, if you're Brock Osweiler, come back and kind of smack the Houston Texans? Although I don't know why Brock Osweiler, a lot of people calling this game a revenge game. Why would Brock Osweiler give a crap? They're the ones that paid him all that damn money. So, I mean, he's got nothing to be upset about. Although they did drop him like a bad habit there as soon as they figured out, like, wow, this might not have been the right investment. So maybe he's looking to prove the world wrong here tonight. He'll have an opportunity. You know, he's going to be the primetime game tonight. Brock Osweiler, Brocktober we've had to deal with. That's what's been going on here for the Miami Dolphins. And listen, the Texans know Brock Osweiler all too well. They signed him to that $72 million deal back in March of 2006. And there's still a lot of people scratching their heads in that organization. But he did play 15 regular season games that year. And he had I believe, what was the number, 59. He had a 59% completion percentage. He had almost 3,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and he ended the year with a 72.2 passer rating. So not exactly worth the $72 million. They ended up going with Tom Savage towards the end of the year and parked his $72 million ass on the bench there. And it's just kind of been, Savage ended up getting a concussion last year, so they had to end up bringing Osweiler back in to take the job. But he did start in 2 playoff games. He led the Texans to a win over the Raiders during that wild card weekend before he got smoked against the Patriots in the AFC divisional round. The second year that he was there, the Texans just said, yeah, this is not good. The Texans traded him to Cleveland, and the Browns didn't know what to do with him there. And it's not like the Browns are some sort of great quarterback factory there. So even the Browns were like, we screw up every quarterback we touch, and he's already screwed up. We can't even make him any worse than he is. So they ended up cutting him, and now he's with the Dolphins. He finds himself in a situation with Ryan Tannehill recovering from a shoulder injury, and they held on to Brock. Brock and Adam Gase have a long history together, and Brock loves Adam Gase. Adam Gase trusts Brock Osweiler, which is why he kept him. And can I just tell you something? It's not as if he's been horrible in the backup role over the last couple of weeks for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins did not look great last week. They ended up getting smoked by the Detroit Lions at home. But I can tell you this, it wasn't because of Brock Osweiler. It was because of the Dolphins' defense that really couldn't stop anybody. Total letdown from the defensive side of the ball. And I know it's easy to laugh at Brock Osweiler and be like, oh, God, all the problems got to fall on the quarterback. But he's not been the reason why. As a matter of fact, he was a big reason as to why they ended up coming back and winning that game against the Chicago Bears a couple of weeks ago at home. They're 1-1 under Brock Osweiler when he's under center. And I know we've laughed at him in past games, but I don't know. Brock Osweiler is not going to be, I don't think, the reason why the Dolphins lose this game. But I do think, if this makes any sense, he could very well be the reason why they win it. A lot of motivation tonight for Brock Osweiler to try, and it's the redemption tour. This is a guy trying to prove everyone wrong that you had me, you paid me the money, and I thank you for that. But at the same time, you might have made a mistake letting me go. So to me, that's the big storyline tonight, is watching Brock Osweiler and how he performs center stage Thursday night, prime time. Can he get it done, and can he get people in that organization to question whether or not he was, did they make the mistake, did they not make the mistake? It'll be fun to watch that alone. Both of these teams are 4-3, and let's face it, I don't think anybody thought either of these teams would be 4-3 at this point in the season. Rough start to the year for the Texans, but they've rattled off 4 straight wins, and now they're in first place in the AFC South. The Dolphins and the Texans both looking for the 5th win this season, and let's face it, told me this a couple of weeks ago, looking at the schedule, this would have been a game I'd have been like, but really the Dolphins have become extremely intriguing in an AFC East now that, although it does look like the Patriots have figured things out, the Patriots still have to play the Dolphins a couple of times. And the Patriots still have flaws. This is not a great Patriots team, at least not to the extent that we've seen them in the past. They still have some flaws. If the Dolphins can hold on, and if they can win tonight and have 5 wins, the AFC East becomes very, very interesting, especially with those couple of games coming up against the New England Patriots. And it's going to help. They are getting a little healthier on the defensive side of the ball. They're decimated, the Miami Dolphins, on the offense when it comes to wide receivers. They're signing guys off the street. I mean, they were down in South Beach basically signing people, hey, you look like you were catching the ball on the beach, so why don't we go ahead and sign you? It has not been a good week for the Miami Dolphins. We're going to learn a lot about their scouting, and they signed a couple of guys off the practice squad. So we're going to learn whether or not Adam Gase and the Miami Dolphins organization can actually, what their judgment of talent is going to be. So it'll be... They're going to miss Albert Wilson for sure, and we already know that Kenny Stills is out. He's got a bit of a groin issue too, so their 2 top outside threats are down and out, and now we've got guys like Devontae Parker, who have been MIA the whole year, whose agent came out and just blasted Adam Gase last week, hoping for a trade, looking for a trade. Well, Devontae Parker also has an opportunity to stick it to all of the naysayers tonight. Devontae Parker is going to be a guy they're going to have to count on because they don't have anybody else. So he is going to be the de facto numero uno simply because they've had to hire guys off of the street to catch the ball for them. Devontae Parker's got all the skills in the world. The dude is a beast. The problem is he just hasn't morphed into anything that the Dolphins have been able to use. And primetime, Thursday night, has an opportunity. 2 underdogs is what you're basically looking at here tonight in Brock Osweiler and Devontae Parker, 2 guys that have gotten a boatload of crap over the last couple of years about their inability to get the job done. Well, they have an opportunity now to get the job done against a Texans team whose defense over the last 3 weeks has been basically unstoppable. Now they haven't played anybody. What they play? Buffalo, Indianapolis. It hasn't been great. The Tennessee. I mean, who else did they play? I think that was Jacksonville, rather, which is self-imploding. So they haven't exactly been playing offensive juggernauts there. But that defense is quietly, the numbers they are putting up is staggering. It's become quietly, I think, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and it all centers around the health of J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt is healthier for the first time in a long time. You can see his progression starting to get better, starting to be a force once again on that front seven. Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt, the secondary, all doing a great job, albeit against guys like, I get it, Allen, what's his name? Allen, he's not even playing anymore. Whoever the Buffalo Bills first-year quarterback is there, who's now hurt and may not ever play again, and had to go up against Blake Bortles, but they did go toe-to-toe with Andrew Luck, a healthy Andrew Luck, and it's been pretty impressive. So do not sleep on the Texans' defense at all. They have been spot on. What does it all mean? Well, to me, it means that we should be looking at the over-under in this game, but we're going to get to that with Ralph Michaels, along with, and I'm excited about this because Ralph and WagerTalk.com have a very special offer that they want to lay out for you guys, and you need to take advantage of it because it's limited time. You're never going to see an opportunity like this again, especially with a guy like Ralph Michaels, who has been killing it in college football this year. I mean, killing it. The numbers speak for themselves. We'll get to that. Ralph will offer it to you when we talk to him, and he's coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Also, last night, Red Sox taking Game 2, and now they are up 2-0 on the Dodgers as they head back to L.A. But can we be realistic? We all saw this coming, didn't we? Right? And I can it wasn't that hard to figure out. We talked about the under last night being 8.5 was probably the play, and it ended up being the play as the Dodgers couldn't figure out how to hit a ball after the fourth inning. I don't think they had a guy reach base. But it really comes down to, and I think you've got two different mentalities, two totally different types of teams here doing battle. One is East Coast, Boston Red Sox, fan base, tough, gritty guys. They got 1 million hits with 2 outs. They got 1 million runs with 2 outs. They are just they're the consummate, you better hurry up and kill them or they're going to come back and eventually beat you. That's what they are. And then you've got a little more of the finesse Dodgers. And what I mean by finesse is when these are headlines that you guys, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, where the Dodgers pitching coach Rick Honeycutt wasn't really happy about how close the bullpens were to the Fenway Park bleachers. I don't know if you guys heard that, but he was a little bent out of shape because he felt that the fans were too close to the pitchers, and he kind of went off and said, this is absurd, it's brutal, I don't understand why baseball allows it, you've got the rubber right there, and people are literally standing over you. And he said this just before Clayton Kershaw, who was pitched the first game at Fenway Park. They weren't happy. They had some run-ins with the Red Sox fans during the warm-ups, I guess, and Kershaw ended up getting lit up for 5 runs and 7 hits in 4 innings. They lost the game 8-4, and Honeycutt just wasn't happy about it. Wasn't happy with the ability to, have fans that close and taunt the guys that are in the bullpen, which is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, especially when you look at the fact that when you look at Dodger Stadium, I don't know if you guys have seen this, that's Dodger Stadium. How far are the fans away from the bullpen at Dodger Stadium? So I don't know what is the issue here. I mean, you're kind of bitching and moaning about ridiculousness here. I mean, that's the kind of thing you'd get a West Coast team complaining about. The fans are too loud. Oh my God, it's so cold. I can see my breath. We don't want to be that close. And yet in Dodger Stadium, the fans are what? I mean, they're between 2 sections or stands, one with upper decks, no less. So I'm wondering how Honeycutt has experienced the fan noise there when you're dealing with that many people having access to the bullpens. I mean, the whole thing sounded like a little bitch session going on there, but come on. Let's be reasonable. You got people spending what? $50,000 a ticket to be able to get into this game, especially Boston fans. You better be able to handle not only the weather, but you better be able to handle the people that are going to be showing up at this game. And right now, the Dodgers have had no answers to it. It looks like they're out of their element. This series looks like it's over already. And I don't know. Can the Dodgers end up getting one win there, end up bringing it back to Boston? We'll see, but it doesn't look like it, especially not when you got guys like Rick Honeycutt bitching and moaning about the fans being too close to the pitchers during warm-ups is actually mind-blowing. But I think you got two different franchises, two different mentalities, two different ways of playing the game. And, the blue-collar workers that are the Boston Red Sox is kind of what they're representing, taking on the Hootie Tooties over there, the Dodgers, the L.A. team, who likes their smoothies and their antioxidants and all that other crap, and they like everything to be perfect. Don't talk too loud. Don't say too many things that might distract our pitchers. Yeah, so far that hasn't worked out very well for the Dodgers, but we'll have the latest lines for you as we get ready for Game 3 back in L.A. At least it'll be a little bit warmer than it was for the first couple of games in Boston. Anytime you can see your breath, it changes the whole scope of it. One of the other storylines here today, too, I wanted to throw out to you guys. Want to make sure that you understand this in case you were looking for something during, I believe, during Thanksgiving, is it? Yeah, they have set the price for the pay-per-view Tiger versus Phil, $19.99. That is correct. For $19.99, you two on November 23rd from Shadow Creek Golf Course in Las Vegas, you will be able to watch Tiger and Phil battle for what? A couple of $1 million, $10 million, something along those lines, winner take all. Yep, it'll only cost you $20. Now, there are no tickets that are being sold for this match, and from what I understand, winner takes the entire $9 million pot. Tickets aren't being sold on the golf course because the golf course doesn't lay out where it's not a golf course where you would ever hold a tournament. So they wouldn't be able to handle the amount of people that would end up showing up there. So they're not letting anybody out on the golf course. It's just going to be Tiger, Phil, their caddies, and it's going to be, the pay-per-view crew, and that's what you've got. But how many of you right now, and I want to hear this from you, how many of you guys are spending $19.99 to watch these two fat asses play golf on Thanksgiving? How many are you? Anybody? Daniel, by the way, good to see you, brother, joining us via Facebook. Nice to see you, man. I'm just curious. Anybody? Not me. Yeah, absolutely not me. Thank goodness for Cody. Otherwise, I would have missed it there. But thank goodness to technology and to Cody and to cutting the cable. We'll be able to see it in other ways. But, man, oh, man, I don't know how many people are going to spend $20 to watch those two play golf. Now, if this was 10 years ago, I think we might have a different story. But, yeah, no, I'm not buying it. Not buying it. And we'll have the odds on who's the favorite right now with this. There are some actual value plays in this match, Tiger versus Phil. And as we get a little bit closer to the event, we will talk about them for sure. But, yeah, that's what you got, $19.99. Get ready. All right, $20. Plop the $20 down on a Friday. You'll be able to watch Phil and Tiger and nobody else on the golf course. Yeah, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. All right, don't forget, want to send a shout-out to those of you joining us via social media right now, on Periscope, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. Happy Thursday to you guys. We are getting ready. We're going to bring in our good friend Ralph Michaels from WagerTalk.com. We're going to start breaking down some of the games tonight, and we've got 5 college games. We've got 1 NFL game, and by the way, get ready for it, because starting tonight, there is live football, both college and pro, on TV each day for the next 27 days. That'll take through November 20th, which is Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. So we've got 27 days of nonstop football action on the television screen, getting ready to take center stage, and it starts tonight. All right, we talked about the NFL game with the Dolphins and the Houston Texans, and we are going to get into some of the college games tonight and see exactly what Ralph Michaels thinks. And don't forget, Ralph's got a very special offer for you guys. Him and WagerTalk.com are going to give you an opportunity to get in on the inside and be able to get some information that would normally not be would cost you a little bit of cash to be able to get, but they're going to give you an opportunity to get knowledge that very few people have, and you're going to have a chance to get it. And we're going to talk to him about that. But first, we've got to go ahead and welcome in our sponsors. There, we want to thank Miami Acura for making this all possible. The all-new 2019 RDX. The deals right now are crazy. End-of-the-year deals. They want to push the RDX. They want you to be able to get that car that you've always wanted, only at a price you never thought possible. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to head to Miami Acura and start by taking it for a test drive. South Dixie Highway, Palmetto Bay, for those of you in the 305. Outside of the 305, pick up the phone and call them. Set up an appointment, 855-564-4669. That's 855-564-4669. It's like driving in your living room. I don't know how else to explain it. This car is amazing. Not to mention, it's got every bell and whistle that you could ever ask and hope for in the car. And the prices, maybe the best part about this are the prices right now and how you can drive off in that brand new redesigned 2019 RDX at a price that you never thought was possible. So call them, set up an appointment, and go check them out. That's 855-564-4669. That's 855-564-4669. Hey guys, it's Thursday, and we love our Thursdays because we get a chance to hang out with our good friend, WagerTalk.com's the legendary handicapper himself, Ralph Michaels. He joins us via the Miami Acura hotline. And Ralph, thanks once again for stopping by, hanging out with us here today.
Oh, always a pleasure. Love chatting with you, Joe, and appreciate those retweets and getting the information out there. I like setting myself apart at Twitter, and a lot of people give their opinions. Well, I give 99% information and maybe 1% opinion, so always do appreciate that.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, coming up, we've got a great opportunity for you with Ralph. If you follow him at WagerTalk.com, you got a great opportunity to get one of his 5% bets at a cost that is just unbelievable. We'll give you that information coming up here in just a few minutes. But, Ralph, let's dive into tonight, Thursday Night Football. What the hell? The college football gods, like they dropped 5 games in our lap here tonight. It's crazy what we've got going on, including the Miami Dolphin game in the NFL. But let's start Baylor and West Virginia tonight. And, you know, to me, the Bears have been a team that's just kind of been an afterthought in the betting market coming off a 1-11 season a year ago. It's like a lot of people have written this program off, and we've got West Virginia coming off a loss last week, and we've got Baylor at a 2-touchdown getting 14 points in this game. What do you see in this game tonight here between Baylor and West Virginia?
You know what? I've been a fan of Baylor's this year, and really what you're seeing is Matt Rule, who had to take a program that was decimated from the Bryles area, had a pass offense attack. Coming from Temple, we know Matt Rule was a run-first type head coach. And what has he done this year? His only losses are to 3 very good teams. Duke, which he outgained, at Oklahoma, which he lost by 33 points. But the reason they lost that game was turnovers. Against Oklahoma, they actually had a 33-22 first down edge. And then at Texas last week, wasn't a bad loss either, only getting outgained by 61 points. The problem is the situation clearly favors West Virginia. Baylor off the physical Texas game, playing a second straight game on the road. West Virginia off that embarrassing loss at Iowa State, only scoring 14 points and having 9 first downs. I think Will Grier gets it back into action tonight. And West Virginia at night, I mean, you have to watch out. They'll be drinking already. Mm-hmm. They'll be partying. There'll be couches burning outside, Mountaineer Field in Morgantown. It'll be a hell of a scene tonight. They're very excited about this primetime game. So while I like Baylor, I would fade them this week because of the situation.
One of the other games, too, Ralph, tonight, not as talked about, but certainly, to me, very intriguing when you look at Appalachian State and Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern got back to the triple option roots finally this summer. It certainly has paid off. They're 6-1 straight up and against the spread. But Appalachian State, I believe they're ranked now in the top 25. I think that's the first time in school history. And they're laying 10 points tonight against a pretty damn good Georgia Southern team here, Ralph. What do you think about Appalachian State?
Well, for those that don't follow college football too closely, these two were perhaps the fiercest rivals in all of college football. I'm talking about Ohio State, Michigan. I'm talking about Army, Navy. They were both in the SoCon Conference, and between them, they each won 4 or more national titles in a 12-year period. So they were, again, fierce rivals. That's carried over, but not quite as much. I actually picked Georgia Southern as my long shot to win the Sun Belt preseason, made a couple nice future wagers on them. So to me, I have Georgia Southern in this game, and I like them. But this App State team is legit. They're plus 163 yards per game. They're holding opponents to 29.5 yards per carry. Now, also, one thing you like, when you're facing the option, this team is used to facing the option. They faced it in the past, while, again, Georgia Southern is back to the option in the second year of Chad Lundford's tenure here. It's still a situation that they like. I think the number is right. This is one of those rare games where I'm rooting with my heart for Georgia Southern, but when I made my number on the game, it's exactly where Vegas has it. So for that situation, it's just one of those games where it's better to pass than to force a play.
Amen. Ralph Michaels joining us, wagertalk.com. That is where you can find him. Football tonight, Thursday night. And one of the other games, too, on the sled tonight, Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech. And boy, have the Hokies fallen, haven't they? They were, I believe, a 3-point home favorite over Georgia Tech. I believe that's where we've got the number right now. But I don't know. Bud Foster's got a great mind. He's a great defensive coordinator. But, man, I don't trust the offense, and we got the triple option coming into play. Does he have the athletes to be able to compete against that? What do you like in Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech?
Well, Bud Foster, again, is used to seeing this team. Last year, they allowed 401 yards per carry, 261 yards rushing, and they lost 28-22 at Tech. The one thing, though, I like about this game is I have this game closer to pick, and this is what I call an inside-out game. And the reason is this. West Virginia was off a win last week at North Carolina, 22-19. Georgia Tech was off a loss against Duke at home. Therefore, people think, Virginia Tech, what have you done for me lately? But the inside-out theory comes with a deeper dive into the stats. Virginia Tech got outgained by 147 yards against North Carolina, had to struggle, trailed most of the game, and needed to come from behind win. On the opposite side, Georgia Tech outgained Duke by 50 yards per game and just had some things occur where they lost the game. So by looking at the yards per game last week instead of the score, I think you would have a different result with the line. I therefore think there is value with Georgia Tech.
And we've talked about this, too, in the past. Ralph Michaels joining us, wagertalk.com. My alma mater, Oklahoma State, is taking on, and I know you love Texas. I know you follow Texas a lot, Tom Herman. And we've got a very interesting Big 12 matchup this weekend. Texas taking on Oklahoma State. Texas laying points, 3.5. Can we trust Texas? Are they for real?
Well, you know what? They're for real when they are a dog. When they are a favorite, they are not for real. It's really been true for the last 4 years under Herman. As an underdog, he has had his teams ready and prepped them, and they've played very well. But when you look at him as a favorite, Tom Herman is only 4-14 against the spread as a favorite. Now, in this game, it's a situation that I like to fade, and it's simply this. I like looking at what the lines were last year and the previous couple years. It shows you how a team has dominated a team or when Vegas compared one team to another. Last year, Oklahoma State was a 7-point away favorite at Texas and won that game. Now they're coming at home. Yes, they lost so much with Mason Rudolph and James Washington and Justice Hill. And, I mean, they lost as much as anyone as far as skill players are involved. But that game last year, they won 13-10 in the defensive battle. Now you have Texas saying, okay, we're back, we're believing. Well, you know, you look at they struggled against Baylor last week. They were a much bigger favorite. They only won by 3. In the dog roll against Oklahoma, of course, they pulled the upset. At Kansas State, they only won that game by 5. So I think it's a situation where certain teams perform better as a dog, like Texas, but going on the road and having that big of a line swing from last year's 7, that means if OSU was laying 7 on the road last year, if they were comparable teams, they were being laying 13 this year. Well, instead they're getting 3 points. Yes, they're down, but I think this is a situation where there's a value on Oklahoma State because, again, it's the what have you done for me lately on Texas with a couple big wins, while OSU lost back-to-back games to Iowa State and Kansas State.
This is the perfect time as Ralph Michaels joins us, wagertalk.com. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ralph Michaels has been killing it in college football this year, and he actually has an opportunity for you guys to profit from his knowledge and what he's been doing. And right now, if you head to wagertalk.com, Ralph, explain about your 5% pick and what you got going with the SEC.
Well, you know, as you said, college football on the season, 67%. Those are numbers that I would normally say to customers, don't believe a tout if they're going to tell you they're 67%. And I am certainly not a tout, and I rarely talk about records, but again, these are records that you could follow at Wager Talk. I'm on a 15-1 run the last 2 weeks in college football. And again, that doesn't mean I'll be going 15-1 the next 16 plays. It just means you have a good feel of the college landscape. You're picking plays well. Well, I have a top-rated 5% play. This is only my 3rd of the football season, and it's game of the month worthy. That play sells for $30 at Wager Talk. If you go to wagertalk.com, and it'll either be right on the front page or go to the Cal Sports page, you'll see that play is $30. Go ahead and add it to your cart, fill out the information, use the code Miami2 as a coupon code. That $30 play will cost you $2. $2. You're saving $28 off the play. Other people are paying $30. My way of saying thank you to Joe for having me on the show, and my way of saying thank you for listening to the show. Miami2 is the code. Get my 5% top-rated play for $2.
Yeah, they don't come around often, but when they do, it is certainly going to be the best $2 that you've ever spent. So make sure that you guys click in the link below. You'll have all the opportunity there. Head over to wagertalk.com. Cash in. Take advantage of Ralph Michaels' genius here as he joins us via the Miami Acura hotline. One of the other games here in South Florida College that a lot of Florida State fans in this community here, Ralph, taking on a Clemson team that just demolished North Carolina State last week, and they're laying some points here. It opened up at 14, but I think we're all the way up to about 17 now, Clemson. And Florida State, listen, they've got athletes. It hasn't gone their way so far this year, but Francois seems to be coming around. Do you think Florida State can hang with Clemson, or is Clemson just going to run over Florida State on their way to the ACC championship?
Well, let's put this game in perspective. Florida State, since 1980, this is only the 2nd time they've been an underdog of 16 points or more. The other time was in 2008 when they played a number 1 Florida Gators team. So again, this is shown that 2 things, how good Clemson has become and how far Florida State has fallen. Now, yes, they got to win against Wake Forest. Yes, they got to win against Louisville. Yes, they got to win against Northern Illinois. And yes, they got to win against Samford. But there's not one of those 4 wins that's going to scare any foe into saying this team has a chance to beat me. You know, Clemson, full disclosure, while I didn't use NC State last week, I actually thought NC State would keep it much closer than they did against Clemson. What did Clemson do? Jump out to a big 24-0 halftime lead, dominated that game 41-7. I think that helps them this week. You had two easy games beating Wake Forest and NC State by a combined 104-10. On deck, you only have Louisville, which has fallen without Lamar Jackson as far as any team has fallen. And on the Florida State side, yes, we saw them competitive against Miami. But even though that game was close, they still only had 200 yards of offense. Florida State had 200 yards of offense. That's amazing to think of those numbers. I just can't step in front of Clemson right now. They're plus 256 yards per game. The defense is allowing 2.6 yards per carry and 52%. The offense is averaging 6.5 yards per carry, 67%. I just think right now there's better areas to find. It's either you back Clemson or you stay away from the game.
There you go. Great advice, Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. Do not forget, make sure you head over to wagertalk.com and get that 5% play code Miami2 when you get there. Just log on to wagertalk.com, either on the homepage there or on the Cal Sports page. You'll see it. Make sure that you get Ralph's pick. And Ralph, let's transition into the NFL tonight. Also here in Miami, it's like doom or gloom. It's a 4-3 team here, the Miami Dolphins, but Miami Dolphin fans are never satisfied. Brock Osweiler, kind of a revenge position, going up against his former team, the Houston Texans. Houston Texans, 7.5 points right now. Can we trust the Houston Texans to be able to cover more than a touchdown?
Well, that's one of the two questions tonight. The other question is, can we trust Miami to keep it within 7.5 points tonight? So, it's what's the worst of two evils? Yes, Houston hasn't covered, but they've won. They've won 4 straight games. They started 0-3, wins against Indy, Dallas, Buffalo, and Jacksonville. And then again, until that Jacksonville game, there hasn't been anything impressive. And, the scary thing is, Houston's offense, which looked so good under Deshaun Watson before he got hurt at the beginning of last year, put up 216 yards against Buffalo, 272 yards against Jacksonville. And you look at Osweiler. Osweiler right now has completed 69%, with a 6-2 ratio. Obviously, now this is his third game under his belt. Had the 3-2 ratio against Chicago. Had a nice 2-0 ratio last week. I think it's a game where the Houston defense is getting better. And I think Houston has learned that to be competitive with an offense that has struggled at times, they need to be conservative on offense. Let Lamar Miller run that ball. They're averaging 29 carries per game for 114 yards. I think Miami gives it to Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake some more. Doesn't put Osweiler in bad situations against a Texas team they certainly want him to be embarrassed about. I actually lean with under the total in this game tonight.
I kind of like that, too. And another thing, Ralph, that nobody seems to be talking about is just how healthy J.J. Watt seems to have gotten and how good this defense has been over the last couple of weeks. It was a rough start to the season, but certainly the amount of takeovers, and I think they've only allowed 3 touchdowns in the air over the last 3 weeks, too. A lot of people, they're so focused on the offense or the lack of offense for the Houston Texans, but quietly that defense has become one of the best in the NFL.
If you look at their yards, you were going to be impressed the last 3 weeks. 292, 229, and 259. Now, granted, that was against a struggling Dallas offense, Buffalo, which has no offense, and Jacksonville, which is, I don't know what the heck's happened to them. But what's impressed me even more is in 3 games, they've allowed 14 first downs, 12 first downs, and 15 first downs. I don't know how many years we have to go back and how many times it's occurred in a 3-game stretch. You've only allowed 41 first downs. That has impressed me the most about the Houston Texans.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game tonight for sure. Ralph Michaels joining us, wagertalk.com. Ralph, a few minutes ago, you had mentioned you just can't get in front of that Clemson train, man, that just seems to be running people over. Well, I guess you can say the same thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, can't we? 6-1, but they've covered even in the loss. They're 7-0 against the spread. Is there any way to slow down this Kansas City Chiefs train?
Well, there's quite a bit of difference between Kansas City and Clemson, and that being a defense. Kansas City has the worst defense in all of football, and to be a 7-0 ATS mark and a 6-1 mark, that is quite shocking. But to be honest with you, you look at Kansas City, and they are starting to remind me of the New England Patriots. People don't give Andy Reid enough credit, but since 2015, he started 1-5 straight up against the spread. He is 29-14 against the spread. That's over 70%. I may be a number off on that record. I don't have it in front of me, but he's 70% against the spread since that time. And the Patriots last year, what did they do? They had a horrible defense. They gave up a lot of yards between the 20s, but didn't give up a lot of points. So this KC team is really reminding me of that. It is a situation where, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, fool me 3, 4, and 5 times, then I'm just stupid. So I think you can't play against Kansas City no matter what the situation. And another thing that surprises me about this game, you remember they played Denver just 4 games ago. That game was 3.5. So if you were at Denver laying 3.5, you flipped the home field, which means you should be laying 9.5. This line should actually be higher. You won at Denver. You had a 446 to 385 yard edge. You're at home. You've covered every game. Denver's talking about firing their head coach and how bad their team is. They're 2-11 ATS their last 13 road games, and those only 2 covers came against Indy without luck last year, and again, the worst offense in maybe the history of the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals. So it's very surprising this line is this small, because if you just flip the home field, it should be that way. But one team, you have all the momentum and the public money. The other team, you don't have any. There's enough sharps in this game continuing to fire to play against Kansas City because they're due to regress with how bad their defense is. I'm just not going to be the one that does that.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, Rob, there were a lot of people holding those tickets for the Denver Broncos that last game, too, and all of a sudden the second half happened, and that was the end of that. So it'll be very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this game. And one of the other stats that, and this is one of the great things about following Ralph Michaels on Twitter, guys, at Cal Sports LV, that you've got to get there because you get nuggets like this. He threw this out last night, Ralph, and I was just blown away. Talk to us about the Tampa Bay Bucks and coming off an overtime victory and what you posted there last night, because this was mind-blowing to me.
Well, if you go to wagertalk.com and you look on the top toolbar, there's an NFL query that pops up that has hundreds of possible scenarios that you could play with and see what teams do after a 20-point win or what teams do losing outright as a big underdog. Well, simply, I was playing around in the query, and I was looking first at the Browns. I mean, again, I used the word historic a few times in this segment, but they have had 4 overtime games in 7 games. I'm sure there's no NFL team that has ever done that. You go back and look, I mean, we've never had overtime games like we've had the past couple years with the extra points getting moved back. So, I started looking at that situation, didn't find anything, but then I looked at the flip side. And Tampa Bay had won in overtime, and now they're an away dog. Well, teams in that role like Tampa Bay, who won a game in overtime and are a dog in their next game, 2-16 against the spread. And while team angles are great, they're team specific. When you have a league-wide angle or system like that, I give much more weight and credence to it because it doesn't matter what the team was. It just matters what the situation was. So again, a lot more credence to a 2-16 league-wide angle than a team angle.
Yeah, it's just some great stuff. You guys got to log on not only to wagertalk.com, but make sure, do yourself a favor and follow Ralph on Twitter at Cal Sports LV. And one of the other games, Ralph, that we seem to always people have been talking about since the line popped up was Aaron Rodgers on the road taking on the Rams. And here we go. We're looking at Aaron Rodgers in a very unfamiliar situation, almost a double-digit underdog against this Rams team. Can Aaron Rodgers, coming off a bye, keep it close enough, if not even possibly pull out a victory on the road against the Rams?
Well, he's only been this big of a dog, I think, once in the last 10 years. And Aaron Rodgers is 4-0 against the spread when getting 6 points or more. So in Aaron Rodgers' entire career, he has only gotten 6 points or more 4 times and covered all those. The Rams are also 9-2-1 against the spread coming off a bye. While the Rams are clearly the best team in the NFL with the number 1 offense and number 3 defense, one surprising stat to me is this. They are plus 118 yards per game. That's pretty good. I mean, you're outgaining every opponent you play by 100 yards. Well, Baltimore is number 2 at plus 103 yards per game. Green Bay is number 3 in the league at plus 90-some yards per game. So right there, I mean, it shows you how close these teams really are. Now, you have to take a little bit of Green Bay's yardage away because it's come from when you're behind and you're trailing. But a lot of those games where they were trailing, they were still playing to win. There's a difference between garbage yards. Garbage yards are those that you're up 44-0 and the other team pulls all their defense, and all of a sudden you score 300 yards in the second half against their second and third string. While Aaron Rodgers has played from behind, they're not garbage yards because he got his team close. The opposition had their first-string defense on. No one was going to put their second and third string in against Aaron Rodgers, and he made all those losses closer, or he came back tied or won those games. So, again, they are coming from behind, but they are not garbage yards. So being 1-3 in yards per game diff on the season shows you how close this game is. And then, again, you put the Rodgers effect into it, and I just think that, you know, the L.A. Rams – you are off one of the worst situations you possibly can be. You went to Seattle. You had to come from behind, or you had a 2-point game win. You went to Denver. You came from behind. You played in altitude. You had a division road game. You're off 3 straight road games. You beat your division foe, yes. And now you have Green Bay, an important game. But more importantly, you probably have the second best team in the NFC on deck. You have to go visit the New Orleans Saints. So I don't know how many times out of 10 you would say Green Bay could be a letdown game with Aaron Rodgers, but because of the Rams' schedule, it's probably the least important game for them in that 5-week stretch. So I'm on the Packers with the points and Aaron Rodgers.
I got one final game before we let you go. Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. And if you didn't hear what he's got going on, stick around because we've got an opportunity for you to get one of his world-famous 5% plays here in college football that you don't want to miss at a price that is just unheard of. So we'll tell you that in a second. But I got a lot of Buffalo Bills fans who watch and follow us here, Ralph. And last week was disheartening, to say the least. But there are still a lot of Bills Mafia that believe in this defense and think there's just too many points being laid against Tom Brady here. What do you think Monday night? Is it just a foregone conclusion that they're going to win by double digits regardless, or can Buffalo actually keep this close?
Well, you know, just saying this first. Since 1989, double-digit road favorites in the NFL are 61, 82, and 5. 43%. So right there, it does have you leaning with the Bills. That number is actually even worse when you have a division road favorite like they are. Now, Buffalo's defense is actually number 2 in the NFL when you talk about yards per game under a team's average. To me, yards per game are very important. But if you're playing a very weak schedule, obviously the yards per game are not going to be the same as if you're playing a top 5 toughest schedule. But the one thing that is consistent is you look at how you play against the schedule you're forced to play and how many yards that team scores above their average or below their average. So Buffalo has done very well. Again, number 2 in the league, holding teams below their average. That's an important factor for me. And again, this is basically your Super Bowl. The Bills have had a brutal schedule. You have played in your last 5 games at Minnesota, at Green Bay, at Houston, at Indianapolis, and you had them 1 game home against Tennessee. Oh, yeah, and by the way, your other home game was against the Chargers, one of the best teams in the AFC. if they're going to do anything, this is the game where I do think they keep it close. And on the Brady side, the Brady team is just a little bit different. Now, I don't know if Gronk will be back. Obviously, that's an important factor. He missed last game, and it didn't hurt the New England offense at all. But when New England's on the road against a team like Chicago, I think they only had 381 yards, so it's not as good as their 38 yard per game. But in a second straight road game situation, only having the 21 first downs, again, it's not going to be one of my top plays, but if I had to pick a side, I certainly would back the Bills in this rare double-digit home dog role, especially in prime time.
You see that, Bills Mafia, Bills fans? He's saying there's a chance. There's always a damn chance. That's why they play the game. Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. And if you're just joining us, once again, Ralph is giving you the opportunity for just as a way to say thank you for hanging out with us here on Thursdays when he comes on the show. He's giving you an opportunity at one of his 5% plays in college football. The numbers are staggering how well he has been doing this year in college football. And Ralph, all they do is go to wagertalk.com or to the Cal Sports page on wagertalk.com. They'll see that 5%. And you said it's normally $30, correct?
It is $30. Right now, people are paying $30 for that same play.
Yep, there you go. So all you have to do is cash out, put the code in Miami2. That's Miami2, and that brings it down to $2, Ralph. Am I understanding this correctly?
That is. And again, while you're at that homepage, check out all the free information you got. If you're a college football fan, there's a free newsletter each week called the Gridiron Guide. My college football stat compare is up there. I have my exclusive offensive, defense, and special teams rankings for each game. Oh, yeah, and by the way, last night, my 70-page college basketball preview. Starters for each team, 3-year stats for each team, rankings from 3 different sources, find out where each of the 55 new college basketball coaches came from, and in less than 2 weeks, November the 6th, there's 143 college basketball games tipping off.
It's going to be a lot. It's a good time of year, and it's a great time for you to head over to wagertalk.com. Take advantage of it. Code Miami2. Get that $30 5% play for just $2. And we always say it here, Ralph, knowledge is power, and there's no more knowledge at your fingertips than when you go to wagertalk.com. Make sure you follow Ralph at CalSportsLV on Twitter. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll talk again next week, Ralph. Thanks so much, man.
Always a pleasure, Joe. Thanks. Talk to you next Thursday.
Yeah, we love Ralph Michaels, and some great information there that you can certainly make some money off of, which is why we bring him on each and every Thursday. But take advantage of the opportunity. His 5% game of the month is yours for just $2. Head over to wagertalk.com. Just simply use the code Miami2 and go ahead and cash a ticket this month. That's as close to a guarantee as that you are going to get, which is why we love Ralph Michaels and our friends and partners over at wagertalk.com. Now, there's also other ways to make money in sports, which is why we bring on our next guest each and every week. As long as the word Kenyon Drake doesn't come out of his mouth, I think we're going to be okay. Please welcome here via the Miami Acura hotline. He joins us from sportingnews.com, Matt Latufsky. Matt, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Kenyon Drake's he's back, man. He's back. And now Thursday night game, this is the trap game for Kenyon Drake owners today. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, see, we get this for those of you that are just joining us here for the first time. Matt joins us each and every Thursday at this time. And we've been getting a lot of Kenyon Drake, man, over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And sometimes, for some reason, Kenyon has always managed to come back and bite us in the ass every time we recommend him. But you mentioned it here, Matt. Fantasy football tonight. You've got a Dolphins team decimated in the wide receiver position, and you've got a less than stellar offense when it comes to the Houston Texans outside of their defense, who has been pretty damn good over the last 3 weeks. Are there any sleepers? Is there anybody tonight that we're looking at on either one of these teams and go, we got to make sure they're in the lineup?
I mean, as far as, you got to play him, I think Lamar Miller, is a guy that you got to play tonight, and obviously DeAndre Hopkins. But other than that, no, I don't think there's anyone. I mean, I play the Houston defense too for sure, and maybe the Miami defense. I don't mind them tonight either. But always like the road. Last week was an exception, but I usually like the road or the home Thursday night defense better than the road one. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Deshaun Watson you have to play. Kiki Cutie's out, but I don't think that means you have to play Will Fuller. Obviously, on Miami, it's Danny Amendola's the number one receiver, I guess. Jakeem Grant, some people think's a sneaky sleeper. Yeah, maybe, but you look at Houston, they're in the red when it comes to fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, meaning they're one of the bottom 10 teams in the league in that. And it's not an easy matchup for anyone. And, of course, our boy Kenyon Drake and Frank Gore, they're still splitting touches, and it's not a great matchup for them. So, if you want to flip that coin just because you got bye week issues or all your running backs are hurt, which may be the case, all right, I can get behind that. But no must starts outside the couple obvious Texans.
Yeah, and we get a lot of questions coming in this week here on the quarterback position because there's some questionable matchups. There's some interesting matchups. I know a lot of people. We gotten a lot of questions regarding Mitchell Trubisky as the Bears are taking on the Jets at home, and the Bears are more than a touchdown favorite in this particular game. But I don't know. Is Mitchell Trubisky a guy that? If he's on your roster, is he a guy that you can trust in any of these situations moving forward, especially at home?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have him ranked 12th this week, and we have him ahead of Carson Wentz. We have him ahead of Matthew Stafford. We have him ahead of Deshaun Watson. And you just look at what he's done over the past 3 games. The number that stands out, the touchdowns, 12 touchdowns, that's great. A little fluky, a little inflated by that 6-touchdown game against the Bucs. The number that stands out to me is at least 43 rushing yards in all 3 of those games, 181 total rushing yards. And we know this with guys like Cam Newton and sometimes Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck even a little bit back in the day. If you can get that relatively high floor of rushing yards, that just raises everything. And 40 rushing yards is equivalent to an extra 100 yards passing in fantasy. So that's huge. And if he's going to keep running the ball like that and picking up some things with his legs, because I think we know he's going to get a certain amount of points with his arm, that's nice to have. And I think this week, this matchup, nice home one, pretty favorable against a banged-up secondary. Yeah, I like him this week.
Matt Latusky, sportingnews.com, fantasy expert, joining us via the Miami Acura hotline. For those of you lunatics that are hanging out in the chat rooms right now across all the platforms, we got Periscope represented, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all you craziness in there. Go ahead, post your questions, start-em, sit-ems. You got a fantasy question, Matt Latusky is definitely the guy to go ahead and ask it, so go ahead and post it, and I will get it to him. And, Matt, another question I got a few times this week had to do with Matthew Stafford, and now all of a sudden the emergence of Kerryon Johnson as a running threat. And we know he put up a whole bunch of yards here recently, but a lot of people feel that now that they have a running game that maybe Matt Stafford is not the kind of lock he used to be in the past. What do you think?
Well, I think he's got a pretty high floor. I mean, the yards have been down the past couple of weeks, but 2 touchdowns every time. He's got really good weapons at receiver, both in terms of red zone threats with some big guys, and obviously Golden Tate, who catches everything, runs after the catch. Theo Riddick's out, which hurts a little bit because you like those short dump-offs where whether it's Riddick or Tate, they kind of do the work for him to grab yards. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's true. The Lions would like to run more if they can. It looks like they can. But this week is interesting because Stafford's playing the team allowing the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. And it's a home matchup, but the Seahawks, everyone sort of was down on the Seahawks going into the year because they lost all these players. And then you look at the numbers, and here they are, allowing the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. I think Stafford is okay this week. Again, decent floor. I just think the ceiling is much lower, which is kind of what you're alluding to. And this is the kind of week there might be some other guys like a Trubisky who certainly during the draft, you weren't taking ahead of Matthew Stafford, but might be better plays, at least for this week.
AFC North quarterback, two guys that we got some questions that came in about, one of them being Baker Mayfield taking on the Steelers, and the other is Joe Flacco, who put up, Michael Crabtree, John Brown, they put up some numbers against the Saints, but can we expect a guy like Joe Flacco against a Panthers team where the over-under is only 44 in that game as well? Should we avoid any of those position players and Joe Flacco from the Ravens, and should we just simply avoid anything to do with the Browns at this point?
I mean, look, the Browns have a great matchup. Like, the Steelers have been a little better lately, but that defense, you can throw on them. And, the thing I don't like about that one is it's in Pittsburgh. That just feels like a little bit of a trap for Baker Mayfield. Looks good on paper. Then he steps into this hostile environment, a little bit of a rivalry game, and he's going to turn it over. But I think he can get some yards, too, and be serviceable. I got him. I had Phillip Rivers. I needed a quarterback, and I had the choice between Mayfield, Derek Carr, or Case Keenum. And I said, you know what? It's going to be way more fun to have Baker Mayfield on my team for a week than either of those other two clowns, so let's go for it. But as far as and look, as far as Joe Flacco, I mean, you talk about a built-in ceiling. That's the definition of a guy who, last week he's got about the best matchup you can have, or one of the top three matchups for a quarterback, and he does 275-2. That's kind of his ceiling, I think, no matter who he plays. And you look at this week against the Panthers. The thing I do like about Flacco this week, the Panthers have been killed by tight ends this year, and not just stud tight ends, like secondary tight ends. The last 2 weeks, touchdowns to Dallas Goedert, touchdown to Vernon Davis. The Ravens love the tight ends, or 4 of them. So unfortunately, there's not really a Ravens tight end who stands out as a guy to play. But I think we're going to see a lot of tight end action, probably a little more Buck Allen. And now he has a deep threat in John Brown. Yeah, he can be your quarterback if you're in a bind, but again, you talk about boring. If you're playing Joe Flacco, you are putting a cap on what you can get, and, maybe that's all you need. Maybe the rest of your team's awesome, and you don't want to go for the 6 points or the 26 Baker Mayfield might get you. You don't want to play that game. So you're like, you know what, give me Flacco, give me 18, give me 19, and I'll be fine with that.
Matt, that's a good point, too. Matt Latusky, sportingnews.com, fantasy expert, joining us. Your stardom, sit-em questions. And what do we do? Switching to running backs here. A lot of injuries last week. We know Bilal Powell is gone the year, but maybe gone from football all together with a neck injury, which puts Isaiah Crowell front and center, who has not been healthy for a long time now for the New York Jets. We also know LaShawn McCoy in the concussion protocol there, which means maybe Chris Ivory is a good look. You got Marlon Mack, Matt Breida, all of these guys that have had, that are concerns for injuries. And if you have them on the roster, what do you do at the running back position this week?
Yeah, I mean, this was the week that you've been saving those high waiver claims for, right? Because it was Ivory, it was Kenyon Barner, it was Raheem Mostert, it was, all these backups who all of a sudden might only be 1 week in the sun, if that. But in a week before bye, some really good backs on bye this week in Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon, and things like that. You got to make those moves. Ronald Jones II might finally get that chance. I know Peyton Barber was back in practice basis, but yeah, it's important. And if you have the injured guys, you're probably not going to drop them. Obviously, you can if it's Bilal Powell and he goes on IR, of course. But if it's Sony Michel or Royce Freeman, who look like they're going to be out, you don't know how long that's going to be. So you just got to sit tight, hope they get better. But this is a one little trick, and I can't believe. I know it's on Yahoo. I don't know about other fantasy sites and platforms. But on Yahoo, as soon as a player is declared out, you can put him in an IR slot if your league has an IR slot, and that opens up a free roster spot on your team. So you can make a pickup for free, not have to drop anyone, not have to waste a roster spot. It's a really weird loophole. I can't believe it works on Yahoo, but it does. So it's a way to get a free player on your roster. And it's not a bad way to take advantage of a little loophole.
I love that. That's actually that's great. There's a lot of people going to be scrambling too, trying to see if that actually works. Stardom, sit 'em questions. Make sure that you submit them. Go ahead via the chat rooms. You guys have the opportunity to do that. We've got a few people talking about their Philadelphia backfield, their Eagles backfield right now. Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood. They're going up against what used to be apparently a shutdown Jacksonville defense. Not so much anymore, but how do you trust anybody in the Philadelphia? Like, if you got Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood, like, because you handcuffed them, but my word, how do you trust anybody in the Philadelphia Eagles backfield right now?
Yeah, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
And, to me, that's a team that should make a trade, right? They should go try to get LaShawn McCoy or, heck, Le'Veon Bell, who knows? But I don't know if they will, probably won't. Who knows? But this week, all I know is I don't want anything to do with either of those guys, which usually means one gets a short touchdown. That's the way it works. But it's not a risk. It's not a risk we're taking. Not against the Jaguars, not in the London game, which always seems weird. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It at least seems weird from a fantasy perspective. I don't trust it. You play Zach Ertz, you play Alshon Jeffrey, which obviously very tough matchup for him. But I think you got to play them. And other than that, no thanks. Nelson Aguilar, 6 catches for 20 yards. No thanks. The backs, no thanks. And Carson Wentz, yeah, you probably can get by with playing them. But I think there might be better options out there.
Running back question: T.J. Yeldon or Aaron Jones?
I mean, it's got to be Jones at this point with Carlos Hyde being in Jacksonville. I don't think he's going to get 20 touches and Yeldon's going to get 5. It might be more of a split, but, a brutal matchup. The Eagles are one of the top run defenses in the league. And, Aaron Jones has been a bit disappointing. I've predicted his breakout, I think, at least their last 2 games. And it hasn't quite happened. He, both in terms of getting way more carries than Jamal Williams or big production. He had a touchdown a couple weeks ago, called back. He did score one, I think, the week before that. So it feels he's close. It feels like he's the leader. Tough matchup. Feels like a game where the Packers are going to be throwing a lot. Maybe the carries are down, but I'd rather take my chances with a more explosive player on a better offense.
We got a wide receiver question. Need one out of the following 3: Demaryius Thomas, Allen Robinson, or Jordy Nelson?
Well, I certainly don't trust Allen Robinson, even if he's active. We saw that last week. Doesn't feel like he's even close to healthy. And, obviously with Jordy Nelson, it's all about the Amari Cooper, who steps up, who fills that role. I kind of think it might be Martavis Bryant quietly. He's one of these, he's the poor man's Josh Gordon. He's one of these guys fantasy owners can't quit, who keeps getting into trouble. We want him to be good. To me, that situation, I want to see it in action first, see what happens, see the way the targets are divvied up. So I got to think it's Demaryius Thomas, as unexciting and uninspiring as he is most weeks. Pretty good matchup against the Chiefs. And, he's been pretty good. The targets have been pretty regular for him, so I kind of like him this week.
Another wide receiver out of the 3, Geronimo Allison of the Packers taking on the Rams, Deshaun Jackson taking on the Bengals, or Robbie Anderson, the Jets, taking on the Bears.
Boy, that's a tough one, because all 3 of those guys are a little bit of a coin flip. They're boomer bust guys. Allison obviously is on to me anyway, with the best quarterback. And that's, again, it's a game where you figure they'll be throwing a lot, but after Marquez Valdes-Scantling stepped up, does he lose a few targets, a little bit of playing time? I don't know. I would probably go with Jackson. I don't feel great about that just because he doesn't seem to have a great rapport with Jameis Winston for whatever reason. But, we saw it last week. He had the carry for a touchdown. He's a big play machine. If I'm playing that boomer bust game, I want to go with him as opposed to Robbie Anderson with a rookie quarterback on the road. Look, the Bears have struggled against wide receivers. They're in the top 10 fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. But, that's because they're facing better quarterbacks. So Sam Darnold on the road, I don't know if he can get it to Robbie Anderson enough times or in the right situation for Robbie Anderson to pay off.
Yeah, we got a tight end question coming in. Ben Watson taking on the Vikings, or Ricky Seals-Jones, Cardinals, taking on the 49ers?
I mean, good matchups on paper for both. I think people might be surprised to know that the Vikings are in the top 7 in fantasy points allowed to tight ends. And with Watson, Ted Ginn's out. It opens up a few targets to go around there. We saw last week Ben Watson catch all 6 of his targets, 43 yards and a score against a much tougher defense against tight ends. So I think that's a good matchup for him. I think he's more bankable. Seals Jones has a good matchup every week and rarely pays off. When they played the 49ers a few weeks ago, he got 6 targets, which you like. He caught 0 of them, which you don't. So I'm a little interested with the new offensive coordinator there to see what, if anything, changes in that offense. But I'm not ready to go back down that Seals Jones route. And at the end of the day, do I want my tight end having Josh Rosen or whoever throwing to him or Drew Brees? I pick Drew Brees. That's it. So
I like that too. Matt Latowski, sportingnews.com, fantasy expert. A couple of more here coming in. Wide receiver Josh Gordon or Larry Fitzgerald.
I got to go Gordon there. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't really like that matchup because the Bills have a decent secondary, and it feels like a game where if Gordon doesn't score early, he ain't going to score just because the Patriots will be sitting on a lead in the second half and be running more, etc. But he's a better player. He's clearly ingrained in that offense now. He's on the field almost every play and getting targets. And I just like that about him. And as long as he's on the field and he's healthy and his head's right, I'm going to take my chances with Josh Gordon this week.
Here we got a Raider question coming in. Doug Martin or Jalen Richards?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one because Marshawn Lynch was averaging 17.5 touches per game, had 3 games over 20 touches, and Doug Martin figures to slot into that role much more than Jalen Richard, who was already playing, who was already sort of the check down back when they were behind, hurry up, what have you. So I'm really curious to see how much those roles change, if at all. I think for this week it's got to be Martin, and that's a horrible feeling to be starting Doug Martin. Don't get me wrong. This guy averaged 2.9 yards a carry each of his last 2 seasons in Tampa, and he's only at 3-point-some this year. I don't think Doug Martin's good. I'm not saying Doug Martin's good, but I do think he's a better bet for touches. And, playing the Colts, they don't project as a team. They could blow the Raiders out. Sure they could. Who couldn't?
Right.
But I don't know if this is a game where the game script says Raiders will be behind a lot, Jalen Richard will be getting more receptions. So maybe in PPR you can talk me into Richard standard. Nah, I'm going to take my chances for the short touchdown with Martin.
All right, and final question we have wide receiver question. We need 1 out of the 3 here. Sammy Watkins, Dante Moncrief, or Marquise Goodwin?
Well, I think on paper, Goodwin stands out Moncrief stands out just because the Eagles surprisingly given up a lot of fantasy points to receivers. Moncrief has had double-digit targets 2 of the last 3 games. The problem is the game he didn't, he caught 0 on 3 targets. So this is another situation where I'm just going to default quarterback, and that's Patrick Mahomes is the best one. And so I'm going to say Sammy Watkins. Let's go for it. That's the best offense. That's the best quarterback, highest floor. And really, probably the highest ceiling, too, when you really think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And at least there's a good chance there'll be a lot of balls thrown his way. So that is why we love him. Matt Latowski joins us, sportingnews.com, each and every Thursday. Make sure you guys follow Matt. Check him out on Twitter, M. Latowski. Always some great information, some great daily advice, and he keeps you up to date, injuries, everything. No better place to go than to sportingnews.com. Make sure you guys follow him, Matt Latowski. Matt, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk to you again next Thursday.
All right, sounds good.
You got it. Matt Latowski, sportingnews.com. Want to thank him very much for coming by. Want to send a shout-out to Vori, you lunatic, the Raiders represented in the house over here. He's still bitching and moaning about not having Michael Crabtree. He doesn't care about Amari Cooper, but he's a little pissed off that they got rid of Michael Crabtree there on the Raiders. Raiders are never going to be satisfied, man. They're just not going to be satisfied. But listen, the good news is nobody's talked about Khalil Mack in a whole bunch of weeks. So it doesn't look like all that bad that you didn't end up signing him, right? I'm trying to make you feel better, Vori. I really am there. All right, 855-983-2255. Shout out to all of you crazies there in the chat room across all the platforms. Mr. Dracula77 on Twitch. It's always good to see you. Vori, of course, hanging out with us on YouTube. Nicky J, what do we got there? Where is Nick J's got a question for us, I believe, over over on Twitch. What's going on there? It's a pleasure to see you. And we also want to know in the chat room there, guys, who is it that you like tonight? The Miami Dolphins getting 7.5 points or the Houston Texans laying 7.5 points at home? The over-under is 44.5. Certainly want to hear from you guys. Make sure you post it in there across all of those platforms: YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch. Welcome in, guys. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I can honestly tell you, I got it. There's a few bets that I really like more than others here tonight. And we're going to go overhead and get those in there. As what do we got? Damn straight, man. I knew he was coming in. I knew it was only a matter of time before Big Bear showed up over there. And can't wait to get rid of Gruden. I'm not sure that you can get anything for Gruden, though, at this particular point. Not sure. Vari says that he likes the Texans with the spread and the over. So he doesn't have a problem laying those points here tonight. I have a problem laying 7.5 points with that anemic offense. For some reason, the Dolphins are just a pain in the ass. They won't go away. They're like a bad rash. Like, just when you think it's done, they show up again and they won't go away. They're 4-3. Both of these teams are 4-3. And if it was under 7, I'd tend to lean Houston. But because we're at that key number of 7.5, man, I don't know. I happen to like the Dolphins and the Texans under. I think the 44.5. I do think the defenses will be the best part about this Thursday night game. I do think that points are becoming a premium for both of these teams. I can see this being somewhere around maybe a 20-14 or 21-13 kind of game. So I do like the under tonight at 44.5, just because I think the defenses are in much better shape than those offenses are. And I don't know what it is about Dolphins. They just won't go away. They are resilient. They're like a cockroach. You know what I'm saying, Bori, in there? You know exactly what I'm talking. Texans, if you like the Texans to cover over 7, that's good for you. I don't have those kinds of cojones. But I will say this too: there is a halftime bet that you may want to take a look at that I think is kind of out of whack. The Dolphins, we know, one of the most polarizing teams in the NFL. 4-3 heading in. Nobody thought the Dolphins would be where they are right now, especially if you would have told me that Brock Osweiler was going to be the quarterback over the next couple of weeks. But neither one of these teams scores a whole lot of points, and they certainly don't score a whole bunch of points in the first half. Neither one of these teams are teams that come out, lighten up the scoreboard, and lighten up defenses. Most of the damage by both of these teams is usually done in the second half. So I do think that this one's going to be a lot closer than people anticipate. And Houston certainly hasn't played like a team that warrants, to me, such a lopsided spread. And the first half right now is sitting at the Dolphins getting 5.5. And to me, that's just completely out of whack. I like the Dolphins to cover the first half line. I don't know why 5.5 in the first half. I mean, you're expecting the Texans, who have not started strong against any team yet this year, are all of a sudden somehow going to come out and light up the scoreboard. I think it's going to be a defensive battle in the first half. I do like the Dolphins getting 5.5 in the first half as well. So that's something to keep in mind. There is also a player bet that seems to be gaining a lot of getting a lot of attention right now, and that would be Will Fuller. Will Fuller having the first touchdown of the game. He's plus 800 right now. That's some value right there. We know Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, they got this thing going on. I don't know what it is, but Deshaun Watson is a totally different quarterback when Will Fuller is not in the lineup. And I know DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his, but at plus 800, there is a good chance that Will Fuller might be able to blow by the secondary of the Dolphins in the first half and be able to score a touchdown. So I do think he's going to get plenty of targets, and I do think at plus 800, that's a ton of value for a Texans receiver to score the first touchdown of the game. It would not shock anybody. I don't think it would shock any of you guys to see that Will Fuller ends up scoring the first touchdown of the game. And at plus 800, I do think there's a whole bunch of value there. But to me, it's all about the under for the game. And I would go 44.5. I think that's where where it goes. The Dolphins are 8-1-1 to the under in their last 10 Thursday night games. Keep that in mind too. It is a Thursday night game. It's not like people get lit up on Thursday nights. Under in the last 4 road games also for the Dolphins. When you look at those trends, I'm thinking that 40, if you can get 44.5 still, keeping in mind that the Dolphins and the Thursday night game and what they've managed to do over the last 10, that's 8-1-1 to the under in their last 10 Thursday night games, that being the Miami Dolphins, and understanding that the under in their last 4 road games has also been money. I like the under at 44.5. Vari wants to know West Virginia tonight, 13.5. This was a game that we talked with our good friend there, Ralph Michaels, a little earlier on in the show. If you guys didn't get a chance to see it, Baylor, West Virginia, make sure that you guys, as soon as we're done here, you'll be able to rewind the tape. It'll be available for you across all the platforms. You'll have you can see it. Early on, we talked about a few of the games tonight. West Virginia and Baylor is one of them. I think Ralph and I are both in agreement that Baylor is not getting enough credit for what they've been able to do this year. They've kind of been an afterthought. They sucked last year, 1-11 last year. But really what was happening is they were trying to get rid of the Art Briles era, all the leftovers last year. And they've done a very, very, very good job of being able to be extremely competitive this year. And I do like Baylor getting 14.5 points in this game. When you look at Dana Holgorsen, the head coach for the West Virginia, the Mountaineers there, he's only 13-19 ATS after a straight-up loss with West Virginia. 13-19 after a straight-up loss. And with at least 10 days between games, which they've had, he is 5-15 ATS. So he hasn't been great when he's had a little extra time to prepare and he's coming off of a loss. He hasn't been great against the spread here. And I don't think Will Grier in his career, he's played in 4 games after a loss, including week 1 this season. And he is 4-0 straight up and against the spread, 17 TDs, 17 touchdowns, and 2 INTs. So Will Grier is a guy that has had some success coming off a loss and rebounding. His coach, on the other hand, he hasn't. So I kind of like 14.5, 2 touchdowns. I think there's a lot of value in Baylor being able to score here. Both of these defenses are not great. Both of their offenses are good. So it would not at all surprise me to see that this game comes close to the over, which is 67.5 points. But I certainly like the Baylor Bears getting 14.5 points in this game. I think there's some value there in the West Virginia Baylor game tonight. If you like scoring, that is definitely going to be the game tonight that you're going to watch. We also had a chance with Ralph. We talked about Appalachian State taking on Georgia Southern tonight, another MAC conference game that's going to be, you're talking about a top-ranked team now, a top 25 team in Appalachian State who barely lost to Penn State. Otherwise, they'd be undefeated. They've pretty much annihilated everybody along the way. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. Georgia Southern was the preseason favorite to win everything, win the conference, and these two teams are going to go up against each other. Triple option for Georgia Southern going up against kind of an air raid situation for Appalachian State. Appalachian State's defense has been no joke. They want to keep going with this whole top 25 thing. They are going to be ready. They're laying 10 points tonight against Georgia Southern. Keep that in mind. I think that's going to be a fun game to watch, as is Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech. And I do like Georgia Tech in that game also. I love Bud Foster going up against that triple option. It's not as if Bud Foster hasn't seen that defense before, but I just think that Georgia Tech is going to be a little bit too much for Virginia Tech. I think that got overvalued early on in the season, and now they find themselves where they haven't looked great over the last couple of weeks. And if it's one thing that you don't want to have to deal with, it's certainly that triple option on a Thursday night. And they're just a 3-point home favorite, Virginia Tech, in this game tonight. So if you can get 3.5 points, if you are a Georgia Tech fan, if you can get 3.5, I kind of like that. I like that in this situation. I really do. And Georgia Tech has one of the most efficient offenses in the country right now. They are always picking up tons of yardage with that triple option. And Virginia Tech's run defense ranks 107th in the S&P. They're not great. They are not great at all. So it'll be a fun game also to watch. 58.5 is the over-under there. But if you can get Georgia Tech 3.5, I think that is definitely the way that you want to go. Oh damn! See, Vari, you took West Virginia, didn't you, man? Laying the points. Did you get under 14, or did you get, or you got 13.5? All right, you got 13.5. I'm not going to yell and scream at you, Vari, for a 13.5. Because you got it under 2 touchdowns. But once you start getting into that 14.5, 15, you're asking a lot of a defense from West Virginia that hasn't been able to stop anybody. So I think there's going to be a ton of points scored tonight. I just think that Baylor has enough offense to be able to keep it a little bit closer than 2 touchdowns. But we shall see. That is why they play the game here, guys. That's what it is all about. Once again, want to thank Matt Latufsky, SportingNews.com, for stopping by here today. Also great stuff. If you missed any of his segment, it's available to you guys. As soon as we're done here, you can rewind it, check it out, which is the beauty of live streaming. As soon as we're done here, the video is available to you. Also, our friend Ralph Michaels. Do not forget, guys, if you are just joining us, Ralph Michaels and WagerTalk.com giving you and you alone, that's right, our listeners, our watchers here, the opportunity to score on one of Ralph's 5% games of the month. And by the way, when he gives these, for those of you that are new that don't understand, when he's giving you a 5% bet means that this is as close to a lock as you are going to have. He has one this weekend for you in the SEC. This usually goes for $30, and there are people who are paying $30 to be able to get this pick. However, he's giving it to you for just $2. That's right. All you have to do, go to wagertalk.com, all right? Go to the Cal Sports page while you're there and click on his SEC, his 5% SEC game of the month. He's on a 15-1 run. The guy is at 64% this year in college football. He is on fire when it comes to college. And we all love as close to a sure thing as possible. This is what he is giving you, and he's offering it to you guys for just $2. And yes, I know you cheap bastards can afford $2 for a guaranteed winner or almost guaranteed winner. You can do that by simply heading over to wagertalk.com, okay? Go to Cal Sports. That's Ralph Michaels' page there, Cal Sports page. Just click on that SEC, that 5% SEC game of the month. It'll say $30, but you put in that code, Miami2. That's Miami2. You're checking out for just $2, and you'll get Ralph Michaels' 5% pick, plus you'll get why he's going that way, which is even more importantly, so you understand what's happening. This is a chance for you to score big time this week. The game is happening this weekend, so you have to head over to wagertalk.com and use the code Miami2. For $2, go get yourself a guaranteed winner. You hear me, Big Bear? You hear me, Vari, out there? Even you can definitely afford the $2. Use Miami2 as the code. Go to wagertalk.com, search out Ralph Michaels there and the Cal Sports page, and get yourself the SEC game of the month. 15-1 run on these picks, guys. I'm telling you right now, nobody, and I mean nobody, has been hotter when it comes to college football than Ralph Michaels this year. Definitely the opportunity for you to be able to go in and cash out. And for the rest of you guys, for you lunatics there hanging out on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and Periscope, we love you guys. Thank you so very much once again for making us a part of the day. We're giving you the picks, and not only tonight's games, but also Saturday and Sunday in the segment with Ralph Michaels. Make sure that you guys check it out, and definitely head over to wagertalk.com. Take advantage of the Miami2 code. That's Miami2. Get Ralph's pick, okay? It's as close as you're going to have to a guaranteed thing ever this weekend. Go get it. Figure out why. And while you're at wagertalk.com, check out all the free knowledge that's there. You guys are going to be amazed if you haven't had a chance to head over there yet. wagertalk.com. So, Dracula on Twitch, Dracula77, always a pleasure to see you. All the rest of you guys on YouTube hanging out. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by. We do this each and every Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock. We'll go in tomorrow, a little deeper dive into some of the NFL Sunday games and some more of those college games. I'm going to give you the trends that you need to know tomorrow. We break down those games. A lot more knowledge coming your way. Knowledge is power. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, make sure you guys drop by and say hello once again. So on behalf of Miami Acura and WagerTalk.com, thank you guys so very much for coming by. Thank you, all you lunatics in the chat room. You guys rule. I look forward to hearing what you guys got to say tomorrow. And don't forget, we got Game 3 of the World Series also. We'll tell you who's going to win that game and the latest odds. Join us tomorrow, 4 p.m., here on the Joe Raineri Show. Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. We've got it. Have a great night. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you tomorrow.